France just made one of Ukraine's favorite smart bombs smarter. And if Kyiv gets the upgraded version, well, Russian troops are about to discover that it was already pretty good is not the same thing as please stop improving it. Safran says its new LIR, or Lear Seeker, for the AASM Hammer has now completed qualification after 3 successful test strikes in less than 24 hours under French defense procurement supervision. Safran also says this new Seeker will go into an updated Hammer entering service next year. That is the immediate news, and this matters because Ukraine already uses the Hammer in combat. France committed in early 2024 to delivering around 50 per month, and Safran later increased AASM production in 2025. So when France upgrades Hammer, that is not just a French procurement story, it is a Ukraine battlefield story with a French passport. Hey friends, Wes O'Donnell here, Army and Air Force veteran, law grad, Russian speaker, and famous for my horrible French impressions. Today, we're talking about the French AASM Hammer. Yes, it is hammer time.
Stop! Hammer time!
Hammer, one of the more interesting precision weapons in Ukraine's arsenal because unlike a lot of Western munitions, this one has actually been evolving while the war is still going on. And the question is not what is Hammer, the real question is what this new Seeker changes, how Ukraine has been using the weapon already, and whether Kyiv might eventually get either this upgraded version or even the juicier one, the long-range Hammer XLR. So let's start with the weapon itself. AASM Hammer stands for Armement et Sort Modulaire, which is French for we built a smart bomb kit and then gave it a name that sounds like a Marvel villain. In English, people usually just call it the Hammer. It is a modular precision guidance and range extension kit attached to conventional bomb bodies, sort of like an American JDAM. Most commonly in the 250 kilogram class, though the family goes bigger. The whole point is to turn a dumb bomb into something that can be launched from range, guided precisely, and adapted for different target sets. Now that flexibility is why Ukraine likes it. Ukraine has used Hammer bombs on Soviet-era aircraft adapted for Western weapons, including MiG-29 Fulcrums and Su-25s, which is the Soviet version of the Warthog, and later on Mirage 2000s provided by France. That alone is a pretty good summary of modern Ukrainian military improvisation. Take an old Air Force, bolt on a new weapon, and make Russia deal with it. And the Hammer already solved a real problem for Ukraine. It gave Ukrainian aircraft a precision strike option with useful standoff reach without needing a full NATO-style air campaign. Now that matters because Ukraine does not enjoy the luxury of air superiority. Every extra kilometer of launch range helps keep pilots further out from Russian air defenses, which is generally a healthy career choice. Now, here's where the new Seeker matters. The baseline Hammer variant, often referred to as the SBU-38, uses inertial navigation plus satellite guidance. Now that works fine for fixed targets. If the target is a building, a bunker, an ammo dump, or some other object that had the decency to remain where it was yesterday, INS GPS is enough. The problem starts when the target moves, gets partially concealed, or lives in an environment where EW turns GPS into an unreliable little gremlin. Safran already had answers for some of that. The SBU-54 added imaging infrared. The SBU-64 added laser guidance. But now Safran says the new Lear Seeker combines semi-active laser guidance, infrared imaging, inertial navigation, and satellite navigation into one package. In plain English, this means Hammer gets much more flexible in terminal guidance and much less dependent on one clean battlefield condition. And that matters in Ukraine because targets are messy now. Russian forces move ammo, air defenses, and command posts constantly. Vehicles hide near tree lines, EW environments get weird, smoke, decoys, and battlefield clutter are everywhere. A bomb that can navigate into a neighborhood, then switch to infrared or laser in terminal guidance is a bomb that gives the pilot and the mission planner more options. And options are what keep expensive aircraft from doing dumb things. So let's break down what this actually means tactically for Ukraine. First, it expands Hammer beyond fixed targets. The old INS GPS only logic is great if you're attacking a known static site. The new combined Seeker logic makes the weapon more credible against moving or relocatable targets, especially if the target can be designated by laser or recognized in terminal flight by its infrared signature. That gives Ukraine more flexibility in how it uses the weapon and when it chooses to release it. Second, it should improve resilience in degraded environments. Ukraine's battlefield is full of jamming, spoofing, camouflage, and general Russian battlefield dishonesty. A bomb that doesn't rely entirely on one guidance path is a bomb that's less likely to get bullied by the environment. Again, nothing is magic. This does not mean Hammer becomes invincible. It does mean it becomes harder to fool with one cheap trick. Third, the Seeker matters beyond Hammer itself. Safran says the same Lear Seeker will also be used in the Thundart. Thundart. Wasn't that a Thundercat villain? No. The Thundart is a future Joint Safran MBDA long-range guided rocket with a stated range around 150 kilometers. That is France trying to build a sovereign analog to the extended-range Gimler's class of guided rocket. So this is not a one-off bomb upgrade. It looks more like Safran is building a Seeker family for multiple precision strike products. And that's where the story gets bigger than one bomb. If France is standardizing better terminal guidance across both air-launched and ground-launched precision weapons, then Ukraine has a reason to care even if it never touches Thundart itself. It means the French precision strike ecosystem is moving in a direction that favors flexibility, multi-mode guidance, and battlefield relevance, all of which happen to be useful qualities in a war where the enemy refuses to stand still and accept death politely. Now the obvious question, will Ukraine get this Hammer upgrade? Well, publicly, I haven't seen confirmation yet that France has committed to sending the new Lear-equipped version to Ukraine. So that's the part where we still keep our grown-up pants on and avoid turning a plausible possibility into a fake headline. But France is improving the weapon, Ukraine uses the weapon, the improvement is relevant to Ukraine. I say it's a very big possibility that Paris will decide to transfer this exact upgraded Seeker version. France has already used Ukraine as a practical proving ground for what its weapons can do under real combat conditions. Safran is already expanding Hammer production, and France has already committed deliveries to Kyiv. If Paris wants to sharpen Ukrainian strike capability without crossing into something politically exotic like Tomahawks or Taurus, sending improved Hammer variants would be a very French way to do it. Useful, precise, and slightly smug. But if you ask me, the bigger long-term story may not even be the new Seeker, it may be the Hammer XLR. Safran publicly showed the Hammer 250, XLR, and 1000 XLR in 2025. These variants replace the solid-fueled booster with a miniature turbojet engine from Safran power units, pushing the range to at least 140 kilometers from high altitude and potentially into the 150 to 200 kilometer range, depending on release conditions and profile. That is a very different class of threat than the current Hammer, and if Ukraine ever got that, Russian air defenses would have a more complicated day. Now, the Hammer XLR would let Ukrainian aircraft launch much farther from the threat envelope, which is exactly what you want when your opponent has layered surface-to-air defenses and a bad personality. It wouldn't be a Tomahawk, it wouldn't be a Storm Shadow, but it would be its own thing. A modular, precision, standoff strike weapon that sits in an interesting middle space between a smart bomb and a compact cruise missile light. And yes, that is the kind of phrase that gets defense nerds excited and normal people to leave the room. So the strategic takeaway is pretty simple. France is not treating Hammer as a finished object. It is treating it like a living product line. Production is up, guidance is improving, the Seeker architecture is spreading into other weapons, and the XLR concept suggests France wants more standoff range out of the same basic family. That is what adaptation looks like in a real war. And for Ukraine, the message is encouraging, even if the transfer question remains open. Ukraine is already using one of the better French precision weapons in combat. France is actively making that weapon better. The battlefield logic behind the new Seeker fits Ukraine perfectly, and the most exciting future variant is aimed at exactly the kind of standoff strike geometry Ukraine needs more of, not less. So no, I can't tell you in good faith that Ukraine is definitely getting the new Lear Hammer or the XLR. I can tell you that France is moving the Hammer family in a direction that makes it more relevant to Ukraine, not less. And that is usually how these stories start, before they become very bad news for Russia. The smart bomb is nice. The smart bomb with more guidance options is better. A smart bomb with more guidance options and 150 plus kilometers of range is the kind of sentence that makes Russian logistics officers start stress-eating desk furniture. That's why this matters. France didn't just validate a new Seeker, it signaled that Hammer is still evolving, still being refined, and still very much a part of the future precision strike conversations. Ukraine is already in that conversation. The only question is how much deeper France is willing to pull Kyiv into it. And if Paris does decide to share the upgraded version, or eventually something closer to the XLR dream, then the Hammer stops being merely useful. It starts becoming one of the nastier little surprises in Ukraine's toolbox. That's it for today, friendos. Let's get smarter about defense together. If you found this video helpful or mildly entertaining, consider hitting subscribe. It really does help me continue to make more videos like this. And as always, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Crimea is Ukraine.